Close your eyes for a moment and imagine a world that existed before memory. Before pyramids, before language carved itself into stone, before even the idea of civilization was born. What if our story, the story of humanity, didn't begin 10,000 years ago, but 100,000? What if, beneath the layers of soil and silence, another world once thrived, a world of intelligence, art, and science now erased by time? The rocks beneath our feet are ancient storytellers. They whisper of fire and flood, of ice and rebirth, but between their verses, there are pauses, missing pages, lost centuries that don't align. Could it be that something extraordinary lived and died within those gaps? Every discovery we've ever made, every fossil, every ruin, tells us we are the first. But history has a way of lying by omission. For what if the evidence of a forgotten age isn't missing? It's just hiding. So tonight, let's dig deeper, not into dirt, but into imagination. Let's ask the question science rarely dares to. What if we weren't the first civilization to walk this earth? Time, the silent architect of everything we know, yet the greatest illusion of all. We think of it as a line, neat, simple, progressing from past to present. But the earth doesn't tell stories in lines. It tells them in circles, in cycles of creation and destruction, of rise and fall. Imagine the surface of our planet not as a stage, but as a palimpsest, a manuscript written, erased, and written again over billions of years. Mountains rise, then crumble. Oceans retreat, then return. Continents drift like sleeping giants. Every few million years, the earth reshuffles its pieces, and entire epochs vanish beneath new layers of life. Human history, as we record it, is a flicker, a spark in an endless night. 10,000 years of civilization might seem vast to us, but to the earth, it's a breath, a whisper between storms. What, then, of the other whispers, the ones erased before the dawn of our memory? Consider this. If an advanced society had existed 100,000 years ago, what would remain of it now? Steel rusts, concrete crumbles, glass becomes sand again. In just 10,000 years, our cities would be ruins. In 100,000, they would be dust. The earth would recycle our every monument, fold it into new stone, and no trace of us would remain. Maybe that's what happened before, a civilization that reached for the stars, then vanished, leaving behind only questions disguised as rocks. Every ancient layer of the planet carries secrets we haven't learned to read yet. The magnetic imprints in basalt, the isotopic signatures of unknown events, the sudden jumps in biodiversity. They're like faint fingerprints of something forgotten. Time doesn't just erase. It edits, it reshapes, it hides, and when it does, what's lost isn't gone. It's waiting for us to look closely enough to see that the past might not be what we think it is. Deep beneath our feet lies a world older than memory, a vast, silent archive of time. Every layer of soil, every buried fossil, every mineral vein tells a story written in pressure and heat. But within this geological library, entire chapters may have been erased or rewritten by nature itself. What if the evidence of an ancient civilization, one that thrived 100,000 years ago, isn't lost by accident, but by the very design of the Earth's restless cycles? Our planet is not static, it's alive. Tectonic plates shift and collide like slow-moving beasts, devouring the crust in a process called subduction. Oceans rise and swallow coastlines. Volcanic eruptions bury entire regions beneath molten stone. Over time, even the grandest cities would be reduced to dust, their remains compressed into minerals, indistinguishable from nature's own creations. Now imagine standing in a desert where the wind carves stone into ghostly shapes. Beneath your feet, hundreds of meters below, could rest what once was, an entire world erased. The buildings now minerals, the roads now veins of quartz, the statues now shards of forgotten history. Scientists studying the deep earth have already found anomalies, layers of carbon and isotopes that don't fit neatly into known natural events. Some suggest massive wildfires or volcanic bursts, but others wonder, could these be industrial scars? Could we be staring at the byproducts of a civilization erased long before ours began? And what about the seabed, the planet's greatest graveyard? More than 80% of the ocean floor remains unmapped. The weight of time has buried countless mysteries beneath sediments miles thick. There could be remnants of entire continents lost to the waves, like the mythical Lemuria or the enigmatic Doggerland that once connected Britain to Europe. When we find something strange, a perfectly cut stone in an ancient seabed, metallic spheres embedded in rock millions of years old, or fossilized patterns that hint at geometry, science hesitates. We label them out-of-place artifacts, curiosities, accidents. But what if they're not accidents at all? The deeper we dig, the more we realize how little we know. Our tools, precise as they are, still see only fragments. The earth guards its secrets well, not through deception, but through time. It hides its oldest truths under miles of silence. So, if evidence of an ancient advanced society does exist, it may not lie waiting in open ruins or statues, but in chemical signatures, altered isotopes, and microscopic imprints in the oldest rocks. Messages in a language we are only just beginning to learn to read. And maybe, just maybe, the Earth remembers everything, every civilization on Earth, no matter how distant or isolated, carries with it a collection of ancient stories, myths that echo across cultures and continents, floods that wiped the world clean, gods who descended from the sky, golden ages that rose and fell long before recorded history. But what if these myths aren't just stories? What if they are memories, distorted echoes of something real that humanity once experienced and then forgot? Let's start with one of the most famous, the story of the Great Flood. In the Epic of Gilgamesh, written thousands of years before the Bible, a man named Utnapishtim survives a flood that wipes out civilization. The same story appears in the Old Testament with Noah. Across the world, ancient cultures tell similar tales: the Sumerians, the Mayans, the Aztecs, the Greeks, the Hindus, and even the Aboriginal Australians. How could societies separated by oceans all remember the same catastrophic event? Some scientists say these stories reflect a shared experience, the end of the last ice age, when rising seas drowned coastal regions. But what if it wasn't just natural disaster they were describing? What if it was the collapse of something greater, a civilization so old, so advanced, that its fall was remembered as divine punishment? Think of Atlantis, Plato's legendary island that sank in a single day and night. Most dismiss it as allegory. Yet, in nearly every ancient tradition, there exists a before time, an era of gods or sky people who brought knowledge, tools, and order, only to vanish mysteriously. The Dogon tribe of Africa speak of star beings who came from Sirius. The ancient Egyptians tell of the god Thoth, who taught writing and science. The Mayans speak of the Itza, teachers from the sky. Could these stories be fragmented memories of an older humanity, one capable of flight, of power, of knowledge beyond our understanding? Or are they symbolic expressions of something deeper, the human awareness that we are not the first to walk this earth with purpose and curiosity? Let's imagine this for a moment. Tens of thousands of years ago, an advanced society may have existed, intelligent, organized, perhaps even global. They might have mastered forms of energy we can barely imagine, sustainable, efficient, and natural. But like us, they faced something they could not control: time, catastrophe, or themselves. When they vanished, only stories survived. Over generations, those stories became myths. The facts blurred, the symbols grew divine, the inventors became gods, the engineers became titans, the leaders became celestial kings. Myths, then, may be the fossils of memory, the mind's way of preserving truth when the evidence has turned to dust. And if that's true, then humanity has not forgotten. It has simply dreamed of what once was. As Carl Jung once said, the symbols of mythology are the collective dreams of humanity. Perhaps our dreams of gods, lost worlds, and celestial teachers are not fantasies at all, but the whispering memories of a past our bones still remember. And maybe, when we look at the night sky, feeling that strange nostalgia for something we've never known, we're not imagining the future, we're remembering the past. Imagine this: long before iron, before bronze, before recorded kings and written scrolls, a civilization may have walked this earth, mastering forces of nature we are only beginning to understand. What if their technology didn't look like ours? No metal machines, no wires or screens, but something far more harmonious with the natural world. What if their science was organic, not mechanical, biological, not industrial? Perhaps they learned to store energy in living forms, trees that glowed softly at night, rivers that hummed with power, and cities that breathed with the rhythm of the planet. It sounds impossible, but then again, so would Wi-Fi or nuclear power to someone living 50,000 years ago. Look at what little evidence we do find: ancient sites that seem to defy time and logic. The precision of the Great Pyramids, their alignment to the stars, the megalithic stones of Baalbek in Lebanon, each weighing over 1,000 tons, the astronomical accuracy of Stonehenge and the temples of Teotihuacan, all suggesting knowledge far beyond their supposed eras. We call them mysteries, but maybe they're not. Maybe they're the remnants of a lost understanding, fragments of a science built on principles we no longer recognize. Perhaps those ancient builders didn't just measure the heavens for ceremony. Maybe they were tracking something deeper, like shifts in energy or planetary resonance. Some researchers have suggested that sound itself may have been their tool: acoustic levitation, vibration, and resonance. What if they knew how to move stone not with muscle, but with frequency? What if architecture wasn't just built, it was grown, tuned like an instrument to the planet's vibration? Our ancestors might have harnessed what we now call free energy from the electromagnetic pulse of the Earth itself. The pyramids, instead of tombs, could have been power nodes, not for electricity as we know it, but for transmitting energy wirelessly across great distances. Consider the mysterious carvings in ancient temples depicting what look like light bulbs, flying crafts, and mechanical devices. Skeptics call them misinterpretations, but still, the question remains: why did so many cultures imagine the same shapes, the same celestial symbols, the same geometry? Maybe it's because they didn't imagine them, they remembered them. And what if that technology wasn't built to dominate, but to coexist, blending seamlessly with the ecosystem? Unlike our concrete and steel, theirs may have dissolved back into the soil, leaving little behind but patterns in stone and stories in myth. So when we find nothing, no machines, no remnants, no proof, perhaps it's not because there was nothing there, but because they built with wisdom, not waste. If such a society once existed, then our modern age may not be the peak of civilization, but a rediscovery. We might just be rebuilding what was once lost, using cruder tools, louder methods, and heavier hands. Think of that. Everything we invent might not be new, only remembered. And if that's true, then the true legacy of ancient technology isn't the structures they left behind. It's the ideas they buried in us. The instinct to explore, to build, to connect with nature, to seek energy in harmony rather than conquest. Perhaps our greatest discovery will not be out there in the stars or deep in the earth, but deep within ourselves, a memory waiting to awaken. Every civilization believes it will last forever. But history tells a harsher truth: nothing does. Empires rise, thrive, and fall. Continents shift, oceans consume, and ice returns to wipe the slate clean. What if this isn't just a pattern of human history, but of planetary history itself? What if Earth resets again and again, erasing entire chapters before we ever begin to write them? The reset theory asks a haunting question. What if advanced civilizations existed before us, and the Earth simply buried them? We know that cataclysm is not rare, it is routine. Every few tens of thousands of years, the planet reshapes itself. Volcanoes erupt with apocalyptic force, asteroids strike with unimaginable power, magnetic poles flip, climates shift from tropical to frozen wasteland. Each time, the Earth changes the rules, and everything built on the old rules is swept away. Think of the last ice age. Just 12,000 years ago, much of the planet was unrecognizable. Vast glaciers covered North America and Europe. Sea levels were over 120 meters lower than they are today, exposing entire landmasses now lost beneath the ocean. What stories were buried with them? If a society had flourished then, in the warmth before the ice, their cities could easily now lie under the waves, broken and dissolved by time. Mainstream archaeology tells us civilization began around 6,000 years ago, but discoveries like Göbekli Tepe, dating back over 11,000 years, challenge that timeline. It means that humans were organizing, building, and designing monumental architecture long before civilization was supposed to exist. So what if we're only scratching the surface? What if there was another rise before that, minus 20,000, 50,000, or even 100,000 years ago, followed by a fall so complete that not even legends remember it? Imagine the Earth as a storyteller that occasionally forgets its own lines. Each epoch begins anew, shaped by what remains, a few fragments of tools, a myth here, a fossil there. The survivors rebuild, but without the knowledge of what came before. Maybe that's why so many ancient myths, from the Sumerians to the Maya, from the Hopi to the Hindus, speak of great floods, fires from the sky, and ages destroyed and reborn. They are not just moral tales, they might be memories, encoded in story form to survive the end of everything. The reset theory also explains the silence in the fossil and artifact record. If an advanced civilization once existed 100,000 years ago, almost none of their structures or tools would survive today. Metals would corrode, plastics would crumble, radiation would fade, Even the tallest skyscrapers would vanish under the slow violence of erosion and plate tectonics. After 1,000,000 years, the Earth would have recycled them completely, cities turned into sediment, machines into minerals. And what would remain? Maybe a few isotopic oddities, a layer of strange carbon, a chemical signature no volcano could make. To future beings, or to us now, it would look natural, just another layer in the endless story of the Earth. But what if the reset wasn't random? What if intelligence itself, when it grows too powerful, triggers its own destruction? Environmental collapse, nuclear war, runaway technology. We've already invented a dozen ways to end our own age. Maybe every civilization reaches this point. Maybe this is the cycle. Discovery, power, hubris, collapse, silence, rebirth. The Earth doesn't erase because it hates, it erases because it renews, and in that renewal, it gives life another chance to rise, to dream again, to make the same mistakes, or perhaps, finally, to learn from them. If the reset theory is true, then we are not the first, but we could be the first to break the pattern. To remember, before we're forgotten. To see the storm coming and choose not to vanish into myth. Maybe that's a real test, not to build higher or faster, but to last longer. There is a silence deeper than any sound, the silence of time itself. It's the silence that lingers after an age has ended, when no voice remains to tell the story, when even the wind doesn't remember the names of those who once lived. If civilizations truly rose and fell before us, then their silence is everywhere. It fills the cracks between stones, lies beneath the ocean floor, and echoes faintly in myths we call imagination. We think of history as a timeline, neat, linear, predictable. But the Earth doesn't follow timelines. It breathes in cycles. It forgets, and then it begins again. Each reset buries the past a little deeper, until what was once a thriving world becomes indistinguishable from nature itself. Think of the Sahara Desert. Today it's a sea of sand, lifeless, desolate. But not so long ago, it was green. Rivers ran through it. Hippos, giraffes, and humans thrived there. In just a few thousand years, it transformed from paradise to wasteland. What stories vanished with that shift? What knowledge did the sand consume? One grain at a time. Now imagine that on a scale of hundreds of thousands or millions of years. Entire continents have moved. Oceans have opened and closed. Mountain ranges we see today were once the floors of ancient seas. How could anything, even the greatest empire, survive such violence of time? And yet, whispers remain. In every culture, in every myth, there are strange echoes, memories of lost ages. The Hindu texts speak of the yugas, vast cycles of rise and decline, each lasting thousands of years. The Greeks told of golden ages and ages of bronze before their own. The Hopi people spoke of previous worlds, destroyed by fire and flood. The Mayans believed humanity had been created and destroyed more than once. Different languages, different gods, but the same message. This has happened before. Could it be coincidence? Maybe, or maybe these are faint voices from civilizations that lived, dreamed, and perished, their stories surviving only as fragments in the human subconscious. The silence of forgotten eras is not empty. It's full of unanswered questions. What if the myths of Atlantis or Lemuria weren't fantasies, but distorted memories of real places, real civilizations swallowed by the Earth's shifting face? What if the strange megaliths we still can't explain, from Baalbek's massive stones to the perfectly cut blocks of Pumapunku, are not the work of primitive builders, but remnants of something older, far older than we dare admit? Modern science demands proof. It looks for bones, tools, datable evidence, but silence doesn't leave proof. It leaves absence. And absence can be the hardest evidence to interpret, because it feels like nothing, but hides everything. If we were to disappear today, how long before we too became part of that silence? In 100 years, our cities would crumble. In 10,000, forests would reclaim them. In 1,000,000, the continents themselves would shift, our skyscrapers turn to dust, our satellites falling like forgotten prayers. The only clues might be chemical, traces of plastic, carbon shifts, isotopes that shouldn't exist. But who would know what they meant? Who would believe that once there were beings who lit up the night, connected the world, and then vanished? Maybe that's the true nature of the silence. It isn't punishment. It's simply the Earth's way of moving on. Every species gets its time in the light, and then the planet turns the page. But in that silence lies something profound. The reminder that existence itself is fleeting, that memory is fragile, and that even the grandest civilizations are temporary guests in a story much larger than themselves. Perhaps the silence is not meant to frighten us, but to humble us. To remind us that our monuments are not as eternal as we think, that time is not cruel, it's just patient, and somewhere, deep beneath the rock and ocean, beneath forgotten epochs and buried skies, maybe the earth still remembers them, the ones who came before, not as names or empires, but as echoes, because even silence has memory. You just have to learn how to listen. What if we are not the beginning, but the echo? What if every invention, every discovery we celebrate, is simply the rediscovery of something long forgotten, fragments of an older intelligence, repeating itself in new hands? When we look at our skyscrapers, satellites, and supercomputers, we feel invincible, as if we've reached the peak of evolution. But what if another civilization once looked at their world the same way? They, too, may have believed they were the first, until they vanished, leaving behind nothing but silence. History tells us that progress is linear, but the earth tells a different story, one of cycles. Each rise is followed by a fall, each dawn by a dusk. From the ashes of one civilization, another may bloom, carrying faint memories of the one before it, and those memories become myths, and myths become stories, the only survivors of time. Think of the uncanny similarities across ancient cultures separated by oceans: the pyramids of Egypt, the ziggurats of Mesopotamia, the step pyramids of Mesoamerica, all built by people who supposedly never met. Why did they all choose the same shape to reach toward the heavens? Why the same reverence for the stars? The same obsession with aligning their monuments to celestial patterns? It's almost as if they remembered something, not directly, but instinctively. Could this be collective memory? A deep, genetic whisper passed through generations, the echo of a civilization that once understood the universe in ways we can't yet comprehend? If so, then maybe we are not pioneers, but descendants of a forgotten legacy. Maybe what we call innovation is just remembrance, and that thought changes everything. It means history isn't a straight line, it's a circle, spiraling through time. It means the rise of human consciousness didn't happen once, but over and over again, each time with a different face, each time destined to fade, only to awaken again. It also forces us to ask a haunting question: if civilizations before us rose to greatness, and then fell, what makes us believe we are any different? We are already altering the planet, changing its air, its oceans, its temperature. We dig deep for resources, build cities that touch the clouds, and send machines beyond the stars. But so did they, perhaps in their own ways. Maybe their downfall wasn't because they were primitive, but because they were too advanced, so powerful that they disrupted the very balance that sustained them. Could our fate mirror theirs? Could the civilizations of the past be warning us, not through stone or scripture, but through their absence? Perhaps we are both, the first and the last, the first to uncover the truth of our planet's hidden ages, but the last to stand before another great silence. Yet there's a strange comfort in that idea, because even if humanity fades, the story doesn't end. The earth will continue to dream, to rebuild, to remember. New life will emerge, new minds will awaken, and perhaps, far in the future, they will find faint traces of us, a spark of wonder, a question written in the dust: who were they? And maybe, just maybe, they will wonder if they are the first, or the last. The night grows quieter now, the winds slow, and the stars begin their patient shimmer over a sleeping earth. Everything feels eternal in this moment, yet we know it isn't. Every mountain will crumble, every city will fall, and every name will fade. But what endures is the story. Stories are how the universe remembers itself, from the fires of ancient caves to the glowing screens of our time. Stories are the thread that binds all consciousness, a way for one age to whisper to the next. And maybe, hidden beneath all myths, ruins, and cosmic dust, is one single story being told again and again, the story of awakening. Each civilization, ancient or modern, reaches a point where it begins to look up at the stars and wonder, who are we? The answers may differ, but the question never dies. It's the heartbeat of existence, echoing through epochs. We, too, are part of that rhythm. Every discovery, every theory, every spark of curiosity connects us to those who once stood where we stand, staring into the unknown. When we unearth ancient tools, we're not just finding artifacts, we're shaking hands with the past. When we explore Mars or the ocean's deepest trenches, we're not escaping Earth, we're continuing its memory. And maybe that's the real message hidden in the silence of lost civilizations. It's not about who came first or who comes last. It's about the continuity of wonder. Even if everything we've built turns to dust, our curiosity, that relentless urge to understand, will be reborn somewhere, somehow. In another time. In another form, on another planet, maybe. And when that new world awakens, it will begin again, asking the same ancient questions, writing new myths upon old truths, continuing the same infinite dialogue between existence and mystery, because life in all its forms is the universe telling itself stories so it never forgets what it means to be alive. So, as you close your eyes tonight, imagine this: somewhere, deep beneath us or far beyond us, another version of this same moment is unfolding. A being, perhaps human, perhaps not, is looking up, filled with awe, wondering about their own beginnings, and in that shared wonder, time dissolves. We are all one, linked through memory, through curiosity, through story. The story never ends. It only changes its voice.